Australia is a nation that has long been a land of immigration, from the original Aboriginal inhabitants who migrated to Australia some 65,000 years ago via the islands of Southeast Asia and Papua New Guinea, to the more recent influx of European settlers to the land. It seems Australia has always been a land many people wish to make their home, and in this video I'm going to be covering the history of immigration into this beautiful country of ours. However, I won't be covering the Aboriginal migration in much detail as 1. That was a migration, not immigration, and 2. That deserves a video all to itself, which I may do in the future. But, with this intro out the way, let's get into the video. The first European migration to Australia began with the British convict settlement of Sydney Cove on the 26th of January 1788, a date which is now somewhat controversially known as Australia Day. The famous First Fleet comprised 11 ships carrying 775 convicts and 645 officials, as well as members of the crew, marines, and their families and children. The original settlers were made up of petty criminals, second-rate soldiers, and a crew of sailors. This meant there was a massive lack of skilled labour, with the colony suffering initial hunger and hardships as a result. It is worth noting as well that the vast majority of these original settlers were men, with only a relatively small amount of female settlers being present. The Second Fleet arrived in 1790, bringing more convicts to the barren land. The conditions of this transportation were described as horrific and worse than slave transport. Of the 1,026 convicts who left Britain, 267 or 26% died during the voyage, and a further 486 were sick upon arrival, of which 124 died soon after. Unsurprisingly, as this ship had brought more unskilled labourers and illness to the colony, it only added to the settlement's initial troubles. The Third Fleet would follow soon after the third and arrived in 1791, bringing more than 2,000 convicts with it. These voyages will not stop at the third though, and other transport fleets bringing even more convicts, as well as some freemen, would follow over the next few decades. By the end of the penal transportation in 1868, approximately 165,000 people had entered Australia as convicts. Those numbers would pale in comparison to the numbers that would enter Australia due to the gold rush, however. The gold rush era began in 1851 and led to an enormous expansion in population, including large numbers of British and Irish settlers, as well as smaller numbers of Germans, other Europeans, and even Chinese settlers. Sadly, these Chinese settlers would become subject to increasing restrictions and discrimination, which made it impossible for many of them to remain in the country. This massive influx of immigrants resulted in the population of Australia increasing from 430,000 before the rush to 1.7 million by the time it ended in 1871. The next major change in regards to immigration happened when in 1901 Australia officially gained independence from Britain and passed the Immigration Restriction Act, otherwise known as the White Australia Policy, was one of its first actions as an independent nation. Now, I have already made a video on the White Australia Policy and what it was, so I will leave a link to that video in the description and also put a card up. But to sum it up quickly for this video, it was basically a law that prohibited all non-white, often even non-British people from immigrating to Australia. In spite of this law though, 5,000 Jewish refugee families from Germany were allowed to immigrate to Australia in 1938 following their prosecution in Germany. After World War II had concluded, Australia decided to launch a massive immigration program, believing that, having narrowly avoided a Japanese invasion, Australia must either populate or perish. Under this initiative, hundreds of thousands of displaced Europeans migrated to Australia, and over 1 million British subjects also immigrated under the Assisted Passage Migration Scheme, including my own nan, which allowed all British citizens to migrate to Australia for just £10. The next major change in immigration occurred in 1966 when the White Australia Policy was officially abolished, which resulted in non-European as well as Southern European migration increasing over the next few decades. Which pretty much brings us to the modern day, I suppose, where now 30% or 7.5 million people in Australia were born overseas as of 2019, with the top 5 countries of foreign births being England with nearly 1 million, India with 720,000, China with 650,000, New Zealand with a bit over 500,000, and the Philippines in with 310,000, closely followed by Vietnam with 270,000. And well, I think that's where I'm going to end this video. I was thinking of trying to say something profound at the end, but I think I'll spare you guys that one. If you enjoyed this video, I'd appreciate it if you'd like to like and subscribe if you'd like more videos from me. But, as always, with all that being said, I hope you guys have a great day, night, wherever you are, and I hope to see you in the next one.